being in the heart of a forest, of a valley, of a river, of a starlit night, of your deeper self. In places, sources, far more alive, more marvelous, mysterious than you imagined. Taking in, drinking in their subtleties, their immensities, where streams of pure feelings, pure spirit, native knowings flow through your body, flow clearly, vibrantly, through every chamber of your being. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in, some of you for the first time, others once again. Welcome all here to show 141 in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live from the deep flowing coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Broadcast 140 was about finding your way through your life, outer and inner life, and in the world at large. Things calling, things bewildering. From your seekings to your wanderings. We did touch slightly on meeting your deeper self, but I felt we ought to devote a whole program to it. So this week, we're adventuring to your source, your essence, your soul place, the place our authentic selves dwell, beneath the layers of cultural conditioning, social corseting, lost or forgotten connection. With a torch of cultural commentary, poetry, and inquiry, I've chosen to light our way. So, maybe we'll start with a poem by Anna Swir, S-W-I-R, Myself and My Person. Myself and my person. There are moments when I feel more clearly than ever that I am in the company of my own person. This comforts and reassures me. This heartens me, just as my tri-dimensional body is heartened by my own authentic shadow. There are moments when I really feel more clearly than ever that I am in the company of my own person. I stop at a street corner to turn left, and I wonder what would happen if my own person walked to the right. Until now, that has not happened, but it does not settle the question. Thank you, Anna Swir. Myself and My Person. That's from Talking to My Body, translated by the poet Czeslaw Milosz and Leonard Nathan, 1996. Ariel Yelen, what is this air changing, this warm aura, these threads of air vibrating rows of people? This small effort, because this little singing, this little sound, small song, this fathomless effort, this voice which comes from the gut, this soft effort at making song, this effort at song, this effort to make song which birds do effortlessly, what birds do effortlessly, this tiny bird, this tender, worthy effort, and sometimes it is no effort to sing. Sometimes I've had a drink or two, sometimes it's effortless to make song. If enough people sing in a group, if I'm part of that group, I cry. I am holding a thing that breathes and makes sound. where song comes from and goes to. Thank you, Ariel Yellen. June, New York City, 2013. Around the Central Park Reservoir. Flower song. When you allow your garden to grow wild with sunlight, to grow open with heart light, everything thrives. Everything sings, even the flowers. From Thy Mind, O Human, Bryce Haymond, on our deeper source and self. We are not independent of nature, nor are we the cause of ourself, but rather we arise in a deeper source. That is our true self. We wake up in this world when we realize we didn't put ourselves here. We didn't make ourselves. Something else did. We didn't give ourselves this body, this hair color, this face, this gender, etc. It was all given to us. We are the recipients. And yet, we also realize we're not separate from that which made us, but that it somehow became us and is continually becoming us in every moment, giving us this life we experience. Our sense of being a, quote, self is merely the tip of the iceberg, a psychological construction in our mind, thinking that it is in control, that it is the all of our being, that it is, quote, us. When the ego is revealed for what it is, when we know our, quote, self, then we also recognize the deeper source from which we come and of which we are, the true self, sometimes called the Christ self or the Buddha nature or ultimate reality or God. We don't control this true self, but rather we allow it to work through us, flowing through us unimpeded by ego. Let me point you along the way here to one of the Living Myth podcasts, number 313, Soul's Hidden Gradient, Michael Mead's programs, the applied mythologist I've spoken of other times. And this is a few lines from the show note for that. In this episode of Living Myth, Mead explores how, as the outer world suffers conflicts and collapse, the balancing imagination and energy for healing seeks to awaken in our individual souls. This inborn code of the soul provides a gradient or guideline that can aim our energy as well as protect our lives. The soul's gradient is a mythic umbilical that plumbs to the ground of our being, but also connects us with the soul of the world. When in touch with this guiding line, we can draw upon the resources and creative imagination of our souls. So maybe you want to listen to that excellent, inspiring program. This is from AUMANI Boutique, Om. The true and beautiful meaning of Om, awaken your deeper self. Well, I was thinking about the chant of it, of Om, something you may already practice. But if you haven't practiced it and you've just heard about it, I thought this snippet might be worth sharing. It symbolizes divine energy. It derives from Hinduism, but its power is beyond the religion. The high spiritual mantra has three main characteristics: creation, preservation, and liberation. The vibrations of chanting Om allow us to forget all our everyday lives and practice mindfulness. Can you believe if you are chanting Om, the vibration of 432 hertz frequency can be felt within you and all surrounding things? But it's true. It acknowledges our connection to the universe. The symbolic and physical tuning creates calming effects in the body and nervous system. It connects us to our deeper selves and creates a spiritual bond with everything around us. Many ancient philosophical texts have considered Om as the sacred sound of the universe, and it encompasses all other sounds in it. So in that piece, from this place, there are four things here. Take a deep breath, swell the chest, and start chanting with the vibration of the first syllable, A. It is pronounced as aw. Bring your lips together next, and continue the stretch to say U. It is pronounced as oo and feels like a vibrating throat. Now gently close your lips, then teeth to feel the vibration of M. It is pronounced as a prolonged M. You will feel a vibrating mouth. It is the complete word in itself as it uses all your body to chant it. So, take some quiet time later, dear listeners, to Om. I'm even keener myself, beyond that, on the Hu, H-U. It's chant meaning human resonance, resonates with your humanness. I sound it at least once or twice daily, and I do it 3 times. It goes like this. It really toasts you up, and the pitch is never the same. Interesting. It's wherever the body wants to land it. So the Om and the Hu. John O'Donohue, the Irish philosopher poet, from his book Anamkara, beautiful book. Read that many, many times and given it away. If you haven't read it, completely inspiring. Oh, in there he says people have difficulty awakening to their inner selves, especially when their lives have become overly familiar to them. They find it hard to discover something new or interesting or adventurous in their numbed lives. Yet everything we need for our journey has already been given to us. Consequently, there's great strangeness in the shadowed light of our soul world. We should become more conversant with our reserved soul light. The first step in awakening to your inner life and to the depth and promise of your solitude would be to consider yourself for a little while as a stranger to your own deepest depths. To decide to view yourself as a complete stranger, someone who has just stepped ashore in your life, is a liberating exercise. This meditation helps to break the numbing stranglehold of complacency and familiarity. Gradually, you begin to sense the mystery and magic of yourself. You realize you are not the helpless owner of a deadened life, but rather a temporary guest gifted with blessings and possibilities you could neither invent nor earn. John O'Donohue, thank you for that. Questions? I do have questions for you to ask, actually, about your deeper self, or of your deeper self. What level of self are you living at? Hopefully not some of the numbed out levels that John O'Donohue is talking about, but maybe some, all levels. But what about the most fundamental ones? How deeply have you dived or divined or ventured down to your source, your essence, your soul place, the place of your most authentic, unvarnished, untarnished self, beneath all the other layers, all the overlays? And if deeply, what have you discovered? And how has it moved you, changed you, illuminated or inspired you? And if not deeply yet, how burningly do you desire to go there? And what do you need to begin? What kind of depth finder, spelunking tools, so to speak, inspiration or encouragement do you need? What if you thought of it as a great adventure, one of the greatest you could have, as an epic voyage of discovery, like a seeking for priceless buried treasure, for surely there are many invaluable treasures, inner riches to be found and felt and brought to the surface and landscape of your life, to be lived with and flowingly from, as the stories of so many figures through time and the models of other people in the world today, those people who came and are coming now from their deeper selves and deeper connection to the world and life around them, especially the natural world. Deeper well-dwellers, I call them. What they show us. Maybe you know some. I do know. More than a handful. It's a joy to know them. Have you been suppressing your true voice in any way? If so, why? And when did you stop holding it in, holding it back, if you did? What prompted that? Part of my own journey in life and my poetic arts included was finding my authentic voice, literally as an expression of my essence as well. And decades back, I was living in New York City, and there was a holistic training and teaching center. Some of you may know the Open Center. And I was leafing through their course offerings one day and saw a several-week program called Finding Your Natural Voice. And I wound up doing that workshop, and then a smaller one, and then working one-on-one with the teacher, and only to discover the voice I thought was my true voice was not. This is it now. I know it is. I can feel it in every bone. And it opened up so many other parts of my life by coming to that place. So, always encouraging us to go to those openings. And one last question. Have you ever felt like a stranger to yourself? With so many unknowns, or should we say yet knowns? If so, imagine getting to know those parts of you closely, intimately, getting to a wholeness, a whole sense of yourself, from the outer skin to the inner marrow of your being, plumbing the depths instead of skimming the surface or wading in the shallows of who you are. Well, I'm certainly encouraging you into all of these openings and opportunities to go deeper, ever deeper, become a deeper well-dweller. Poem for you from July 2016, as I pondered how we cut ourselves off from ourselves, or can, for various reasons, closing off or closing down. This is hermetically unsealed. You can try and seal parts of yourself off, isolate your flows, floods of thoughts or feelings from possible or actual breaches of mind or heart. Make yourself airtight, watertight, as a way to contain feared damage to your emotional hull. Fine for a seagoing ship, but contrary to nature. Unnatural to the natural way of all life-going bodies, whose porousness makes them counterculturally more impervious, less sinkable, where everything works as a whole, in a wholly unenclosed flow, free exchange of information, energy, essence, that each of us needs to be fully, freely alive, buoyant, conversant, and ever emergent. Portrait of a Figure Near Water by Jane Kenyon. Rebuked, she turned and ran uphill to the barn. Anger, the inner arsonist, held a match to her brain. She observed her life. Against her will, it survived the unwavering flame. The barn was empty of animals. Only a swallow tilted near the beams, and bats hung from the rafters. The roof sagged between. Her breath became steady where, years past, the farmer cooled the big tin amphora of milk. The stone trough was still filled with water. She watched it and received its calm. So it is when we retreat in anger. We think we burn alone, and there is no balm. Then water enters, though it makes no sound. Thank you, Jane Kenyon, from her collected poems. The Work of Happiness by May Sarton. I thought of happiness, how it is woven out of the silence in the empty house each day, and how it is not sudden and it is not given, but is creation itself, like the growth of a tree. No one has seen it happen, but inside the bark another circle is growing in the expanding ring. No one has heard the root go deeper in the dark, but the tree is lifted by this inward work, and its plumes shine and its leaves are glittering. So happiness is woven out of the peace of hours and strikes its roots deep in the house alone. The old chest in the corner, cooled, waxed floors, white curtains softly and continually blown as the free air moves quietly about the room. A shelf of books, a table, and the whitewashed wall. These are the dear familiar gods of home, and here the work of faith can best be done. The growing tree is green and musical. For what is happiness but growth in peace? The timeless sense of time, when furniture has stood a life's span in a single place, and as the air moves, so the old dreams stir the shining leaves of present happiness. No one has heard thought or listened to a mind, but where people have lived in inwardness, the air is charged with blessing and does bless. Windows look out on mountains, and the walls are kind. Thank you, Miss Harton. From Psychology Today, The Authentic Self with a capital S, by Andrea Matthews. I am not myself. I don't know why I do that. I didn't mean it. I don't know why I'm crying. These are all statements made when we become slightly aware that we're out of touch with the authentic self. Self with a capital S. It has a capital S because it isn't the same as the identity, which we often refer to as the self, as self. The identity is a mask and costume that we have worn since we introjected the thinking, feeling, and behaviors projected onto us by parents, caregivers, family, religion, and society. That identity can act, it can think, it can even feel. It can do that because we have moved the sense of self into a mask and costume that we have worn so hard and for so long that we think it is who we are. But it isn't who we are. It is who they needed us to be. It is who we became in order to belong to them. And we think that is our survival. Perhaps we feel this as a deep longing for something, or perhaps we surprise ourselves with something we say or do, or perhaps we just slowly begin to look deeper and find new aspects that have been previously undiscovered. When it surprises us, we often very quickly stuff it back into the unconscious. We do that because it rocks our boat. We do that because it has said or done something that makes us temporarily aware that we are not happy with our lives, with our relationships, our careers, or our own behaviors. All that time, the authentic self is trying to find little ways to show itself to us. It wants us to come to know it intimately. It means to give us the peace of congruence. It means to show us who we are so that we can become that in our daily lives. It means to point out our original thoughts, our original beliefs, and our genuine feelings and behaviors. To finally bring us home to our own souls, a term that can be seen as liberally synonymous with self. We look for the self within. We look for it in earnest desires and genuine emotions, in original thoughts and behaviors that have always wanted to manifest. We don't find it in other people's opinions, social or cultural belief systems, social mores, familial agendas, or other external data. We find it by looking for it within. So the journey may begin with inner dialogue, in which the identity begins a conversation with the authentic self. Maybe it's time, friends, to tune and play your remarkable instrument. Time to play. Time to play your music. All the music of the one, the spirited, sweet-hearted, melodious one others have heard with their own ears, that you are. Time to play for yourself, for all, with every note, chord, key inside, greatly awaiting, greatly inviting your touch. From his book on the taboo is the title of the book is On the Taboo, the book On the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are by the philosopher Alan Watts, who proposed a new domain, not of ideas alone, but of experience and feeling. A new feeling of what it is to be an, quote, I, as in letter I, capital. Our normal sensation of self is a hoax, or at best, a temporary role that we are playing or have been conned into playing with our own tacit consent, just as every hypnotized person is basically willing to be hypnotized. The most strongly enforced of all known taboos is the taboo against knowing who or what you really are behind the mask of your apparently separate, independent, and isolated ego. Well, we often think of a revelation coming from the outside somehow, and they do, but great reveals can come forth from within. And this is a poem from my experiential exhibition of theater on paper, Behind the Curtain. This is back when it debuted in the spring of 2018. There's an image that goes with this, of a character crossing. You, like this or another figure, reconfigure yourself as you cross each new frontier of self. Leave each old veneer of self, whether in light or shadow, through forests, seas, or deserts, whether you're young and callow or older and mellow. It's these crossroads we come to, move through, that offer us pauses for deeper reflection, create points of great inflection, expansion, so we might emerge on the other side, another side, reformed, refined, or newly revealed to ourselves and to the world. Unlocking by Alice B. Fogel. But it is not always quiet here. Things go on while we sleep the sleep of soldiers. Ancient branches crack and splinter into dust. Large wings snap open in spring like carpet splayed out over the railing. Granite splits apart at the seams, and great animals cleave roads through woods. Daily in the density, there is life on the edge of the knife that cuts the world into hemispheres of sense and death. Trees are born and die, bones turn to humus, glaciers to meadowland. It is time to turn yourself loose, like new leaves, like big lakes on which swim enormous birds at a distance deeper in breadth than the water's depth. Their shadows pull you to the shore. Their size fills your lungs with sky. It is time to heave aside the boulders and the dams, to come back out like a bear after the thaw, to be ready for the forest, for the forage, for the full and waning moons. You will get soaked in wet grass, feel the insects pierce your skin. You will learn to balance between gravity and light. There will be hot and sticky nights, sharp songs at dawn, long and bright, ineffable days. This is your chance to crash your way through underbrush, unlocking like so many doors. Thank you, Alice Fogel. That's from her collection, I Love This Dark World. Back to John O'Donohue, again from Anamkara, another passage. Thoughts are our inner senses. Our life in the world comes to us in the shape of time. Consequently, our expectation is both a creative and constructive force. If you expect to find nothing within yourself but the repressed, abandoned, and shameful elements of your past or a haunted hunger, all you will find is emptiness and desperation. If you do not bring the kind eye of creative expectation to your inner world, you will never find anything there. The way you look at things is the most powerful force in shaping your life. In a vital sense, perception is reality. Thank you, John O'Donohue, again. Well, see what happens, or has happened, when you truly deepen into yourself, when you deepen your presence within yourself, and bring that to everyone, everywhere, everything. Deeper presence means, happens many fathoms below merely being here, simply showing up for. It's total immersion, connection, correlation with each place or person you engage with. Nothing surface or shallow, only substance and transcendence through all your self-distractions, self-absorptions, where you bring, feel, and are felt as a deeper, freer, and clear as a mountain stream presence in each moment. We can all go there, and we can all stay there. Thalassography. Thalassography by Sarah Holland Batt, B-A-T-T, hyphenated. I have known these estuaries, the channels and canals, the backwaters that flush and eddy to the Pacific. I have skimmed that muddied slurry, felt the nip in the throat where the salt in the air is the salt of the coast. I have tacked where the tide is incomplete, no rollers and breakers, only an ebb that rocks the wayfarers. A rush of silver, the gavel smack of mullet in the night, mud crabs elbowing denwards under concrete slabs of boat ramps. I have stalked where herons stilt and spear baitfish in green afternoons, cast crab pots in loose anemones to watch the black sonar spread, tracked prawn trawlers on the broad water crawling back in the lavender dawn, then sat at the jetty's edge and shucked those tiger shells, cast sucked heads back into the dark, crushed mussel shell underfoot for the burn of sharpened chitin, stepped where stingrays wallow and idle, shuffling their barbs, waiting to strike. I have spent half my life in low tide, nights where I have not known if I am contracting or dragging out again, where the movement of the water is the movement of my mind, unending comings and goings of sounds and narrows, those entry points to my two continents, and my history is the history of currents, a canal small enough to catch a childhood in its net, water vast enough to divide a life. Thalassography by Sarah Holland Batt. Thank you. Thank you for that. Marianne Waters, Seeking the Elements. He would leave the family waiting in the car, leave them to stretch, the motor to cool, and he would stride into the forest to cut a forked willow branch, peel it until it smelled sweet and green, felt slick in his hands, had a life of its own. Through the isinglass curtains of the Star touring car, the children watched the willow reach out like a probe, their father's black hair lifting in an unexpected wind, and they shivered as the sun turned away behind sudden fingers of cloud. He paced this way and that in concentric arcs, deeper into the trees, his shirt whitened by shadow. Who could know anything beyond that forked, peeled stick which led them all? Then, in the space of a meadow, he would feel the first tug, the voice of the water speaking through the branch, and the branch bending down. He would no longer be anyone's father, for here was the place where his dowser's heart met a planet's truth, the exact place where the willow wanted to become water, the water to become sky, the dowser to become earth, the earth to become fire. Wonderful. Thank you, Marianne Waters. Many new poems to me, and maybe to you, I hope. Fresh and interesting and apropos. And like that one, let your divining rod, dear listeners, be your intention to connect to your root self. Find that place of your deeper waters. Well, one experience that I've referenced another time for another program for another reason deepened me greatly, and it was a profound relationship I had years back. And it was really, I'm sharing this poem because of what it showed me, or what it opened me to, which was phenomenal. It is one of the best things that has happened in my journey, among others. It's called Depth Finder. Going down like a naked pearl diver in a greater breath into jade and sapphire waters, into an undersea of living treasures of the body, heart, soul, showed me how much more deeply I could go inside another, inside myself, how much more deeply I could dive, love, and be loved. Depth finder. And you, what deepening experiences or experience of such a kind have you had in your life? I mentioned the root, your root self earlier. It's also a route, a path of a kind for us, for you to follow, and others to make their way to our depths. This is from the Rose City, Madison, New Jersey, February 2017. Follow the route, for it leads to and from your source, your essential self, your essential life force, the way your body knows, the place your soul knows and grows from, pours through, the way for another following body and soul to feel everything deep inside you. Seeker, whoever you are, wherever and however you are, I tell you, even now, there are waters, great waters of aliveness deep inside your being, ones yet to be found, yet to behold, be tasted, a great river of aliveness, wholeness, and possibility flowing within you. The same river that flows through the living world, the natural world, that flows from the same source, that follows a course all mighty rivers follow, to a greatly opening, welcoming sea. In his book, The Divine Within, Writings on Enlightenment, Aldous Huxley, the visionary writer, Aldous Huxley, this is the greatest gift which man has ever received or given himself, the gift of language. But we have to remember that although language is absolutely essential to us, it can be also absolutely fatal because we use it wrongly. If we analyze our processes of living, we find that, I imagine, at least 50% of our life is spent in the universe of language. We are like icebergs, floating in a sea of immediate experience, but projecting into the air of language. Icebergs are about 4/5 underwater and 1/5 above, but I would say we're considerably more than that above. I should say we are the best part of 50%, and I suspect some people are about 80% above in the world of language. They virtually never have a direct experience. They live entirely in terms of concepts. We have to learn, so to speak, to get out of our own light, because with our personal self, this idolatrously worshipped self, we're continually standing in the light of this wider self, this not self, if you like, which is associated with us and which this standing in the light prevents. We eclipse the illumination from within. And in all the activities of life, from the simplest physical activities to the highest intellectual and spiritual activities, our whole effort must be to get out of our own light. Very interesting. How about that? My dear sister Laurie celebrated her 70th birthday this past December, and all 6 siblings of us and their significant others gathered from around the country for the occasion, and I made this gift of a poem for her and her unbroken chord of being, her wilder native being, a free spirit. That's what you are. Always have been, in my admiring eyes, for a lifetime, brimming with spark and lark, unbindable, uncageable, even those times along the way when you felt caged or bound, just times you forgot you had wings, wings that have been growing quietly, beautifully, for 70 years, and your dear spirit waiting patiently all the while for you to find and feel them, open them again, but now more widely, more wisely, more joyfully, and fly freely wherever your still wild self wants to go. Spirit. What if your major chord, your pure expression, your life song, the one you can sing now from the heart of the life and the mystery, the beauty and the possibility you're living now. The song your soul wants and needs, longs to sing out, without thought or pause, to the rafters and the listening ears of the world. I won't read it now because I want to keep us in time, but Walt Whitman has a wonderful poem. It's long, but there's so many marvelous passages apropos of our theme, Song of Myself. So you might want to, if you haven't read it, read that sometime. Here's a poem I wrote for a friend back in time. Passage to India. I heard through the ether about your passage to India. I imagine to seek answers, enlightenment there. I hope you find your way to liberation, to your truest self, to your deepest life, no matter how many thousands of miles or teachings you have to travel to arrive there, to be right at home with your own soul. Jane Kenyon, another one from her. Briefly it enters and briefly speaks. I am the blossom pressed in a book, found again after 200 years. I am the maker, the lover, and the keeper. When the young girl who starves sits down to a table, she will sit beside me. I am food on the prisoner's plate. I am water rushing to the wellhead, filling the pitcher until it spills. I am the patient gardener of the dry and weedy garden. I am the stone step, the latch, and the working hinge. I am the heart contracted by joy, the longest hair white before the rest. I am there in the basket of fruit presented to the widow. I am the musk rose opening unattended, the fern on the boggy summit. I am the one whose love overcomes you, ready with you when you think to call my name. Thank you, Jane Kenyon. Can you be a soloist, S-O-U-L-I-S-T? Dear listener, I believe you can. We each and all can. The soloist who steps onto the stage every day, whether the house is full or empty, loud or hushed, dark or brightly lighted, and opens his soul to sing, sometimes find its extraordinary song, a song no one else on earth but he or she can sing, but all awakened souls can hear, do deeply, movingly hear. Soloist. Our applied mythologist once more, another slip of something. Each heart can be mined for courage, and each soul is imbued with creative imagination. Yet often we must be driven to inner resources by fear, grief, and despair. Our greatest obstacles and sufferings aim at a revelation of the heart within our heart. For what the heart loves is the cure, and what cures the human heart can help heal a broken world. As we come to our last handful of sharings and musings for now, let's take a deep breath with Terry Tempest Williams, who said, I take a deep breath and sidestep my fear and begin speaking from the place where beauty and bravery meet, within the chambers of a quivering heart. Back in December of 2020 by the ocean, where I was residing that winter over in Watch Hill, I mused on the metaphor of the nautilus, in the chambered nautilus, of the heart, of your heart, moving of its own accord through so many fathoms of life, of living, diving and ascending, through joys and hopes, dreams, sorrows and discords, sometimes entering great depths, deeply secret and silent, often rising straight to the surface, becoming visible, beautifully palpable, for others to see, feel, touch, be touched by, growing ever larger, ever fuller, even as we speak inside your teeming sea of being. It's another poem I'll save for another time, but it's Joy Harjo, Hargo, her poem, A Map to the Next World. Wonderful, wonderful poem. It's a bit longer, but save that, or you can look that one up. Fred Lamotte. Ancestry. My DNA results came in. Just as I suspected, my great-great-grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird too. There is dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of a meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I didn't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a mastodon. There are traces of white people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in hydrogen dust, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and yonis. More recently, say 60,000 BC, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of raindrops and cougar scat. My mud was molded with your grandmother's tears. Admit it, you have wings, vast and crystal, like mine, like mine. You have sweat, dark and salty, like mine, like mine. You have secrets silently singing in your blood, like mine, like mine. Don't pretend that earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we do not ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive. Thank you, Fred Lamotte, Ancestry, from his collection Fire of Darkness. Jack Kerouac, from Windblown World, the journals of his, 1947 to 54, where he wrote, Powerful winds that crack the boughs of November, and the bright calm sun, untouched by the furies of the earth, abandoning the earth to darkness and wild forlornness, and night, as men shiver in their coats and hurry home, and then the lights of home glowing in those desolate deeps. There are the stars, though, high and sparkling in a spiritual firmament. We will walk in the wind sweeps, gloating in the envelopment of ourselves, seeking the sudden grinning intelligence of humanity below these abysmal beauties. Now the roaring midnight fury and the creaking of our hinges and windows. Now the winter. Now the understanding of the earth and our beings on it. This drama of enigmas and double depths and sorrows and grave joys. These human things in the elemental vastness of the wind-blown world. Thank you, Jack Kerouac. One more time, John O'Donohue, from also again Anamkara, on ascetic solitude. It's difficult. You withdraw from the world to get a clearer glimpse of who you are, what you are doing, and where life is taking you. The people who do this in a very committed way are the contemplatives. Yes, indeed. But we can find our contemplative places without being as ascetic. But we could be that way from time to time if we need to be. Well, next to last for now. Remember, my friends, you can never lose your soul. You can lose your money, friends, your teeth, your temper, your appetite, your perspective, your nerve, even your way in life, but you can never lose your soul, your truest north, your essence of being, your compass for living. And last, till we meet again, till we float again over these airwaves, to the clearing. When left alone, our body and spirit know where to go, know the way to the clearing, to the opening and freeing, from the snare of the clutter to the blare of the chatter, the thorns of the fear. So go on to your clearings, beyond your endurings, grateful tears streaming when you get there. Down, down to the heart of all matter, to the root of all nature, like the nature of winter clearing the air, like the nature of winter stripped down to the bare. So onto your clearings, beyond all the veilings, grateful tears streaming when you get there. In times of great troubles, great worries, great sorrows, time for our seeing to the dark, the unseeing, to the light of the clearing, to the clearing of vision, of light in the world. So on to our clearings, beyond all the hurtings, grateful tears streaming when we meet there. Thank you again, very much, for leaning in, floating and feeling in. It's a joy to have such an enthusiastic listening audience. Thank you, too, for sharing the shows with others to enjoy and find inspiration in. And for those of you who do send welcome affirmations, and now and then gifts of appreciation, donations of all kinds, sizes, that help me continue creating and presenting these shows to nourish and uplift your heart, mind, and spirit, and those of others. If there's a new theme you'd like me to center a program on, send me an email to colin@thepoetorialist.com. I would love to know what your experience was of this show on your deeper self. To send a contribution, you can do that with ease by Venmo to Fivefold, Fivefold, at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to me at that same email, or by check and regular mail to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891, or just by credit or debit card through my site, thepoetorialist.com, in the Donate tab. Yes, patrons can sponsor or host me this year as a working poet in residence in an agreed place in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world for a set time to create a new flight of poetic art and dedicate it to them. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online, on YouTube, on the Floating Poetry playlist. I hope you'll lean in soon again. Until then, dear listeners, may you intently, intrepidly seek, discover, engage, and express all that you beautifully, uniquely are through your deeper self, your essential self, your extraordinary source, soul. Living from that place is an opening to so much wonder, wholeness, and aliveness. Yes. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.